It's autumn, there's not a whole lot of days left to go up to the high country and play, so when the sun comes out, you're pretty much obliged to get out there.
So it's super windy, and surprise, I got a little cold, but bought a huge pack. Yeah, look at me, I'm dressed to combat the wind. But it's all downhill once I turn around, so I'm not too worried. Parking lot was full, it's a pretty mellow trail. We're getting there, almost to the top.
I've been struggling to get some science content worked into the vlog and just generically covering science, physics, data stuff. I don't really believe in writer's block, but I think it's fair to say that I haven't been thinking about things really the correct way. I started working on a podcast on quantum mechanics, and the big struggle that I ran into there was trying to find a way to motivate the Stern-Gerlach apparatus. The double slit experiment is great and all, and Feynman's approach is actually really intuitive. I still think the best way to distill the fundamental weirdness of quantum mechanics is to really expose folks to the Stern-Gerlach experiment, or to J.J. Sakurai's chained Stern-Gerlach thought experiments. So the ridgeline at the summit was ridiculous. My plan was to keep going, maybe hit Granite Pass, and just chug along the ridgeline, along the PCT for as long as I could. But I wasn't feeling too good about it and all that wind. I had expected to have some discussions and to do some time lapses and things like that. But at the top of Cutthroat Pass, the wind was so strong that I just ended up turning around. I wasn't able to focus. I couldn't even hear myself think.
Okay, I am way out of my comfort zone. I just took a goo, but hit the pass, going back down. Gotta take it easy. My hands are cold, so I'm gonna put them away. Okay, bye.
I remember the thought that I had when I jumped from academia into industry, that the research that I had been doing had stopped being interesting. I was working on things that were hot, you know, connecting weak scale supersymmetry to inflationary cosmology and those various observables, because we were expecting to see a lot of stuff from a wide assortment of experiments. You know, as the different experiments weighed in, we found nothing, no data came through. We started scraping around for whatever it was that we could do with the theoretical models that we had built so far, which wasn't much, and it wasn't fun. I felt personally as a scientist that I was just kind of blown in the wind as to whatever other people were doing. I mean, fundamentally, experiments should guide what our models are doing. It should guide our work, but it's messy.
People have eaten all the huckleberries. I'm sure there's some down there. My goodness, popular trail.
The academic job market was super saturated, and the direction didn't feel right. I dropped everything and set off on a slightly different path. And that carried me for a while, but I started steering too far away from my own internal bearing. I love poking around in the structure of the universe, of reality, and I love sharing it. And so only slightly less abruptly, I'm veering back in that direction now, in a very different way. Since there is no obvious path, it's really hard for me to stay focused and to move through the dip each time I need to create something. It's an intense level of ownership, an irrational level. It's owning both the magnitude and the direction of your ideas, as well as the context, which is insane. Like, nobody can be responsible for all of that. And yet, we must.
So, for a brief moment, I became excited about a little waterfall. Finally, I got out of the trees and the wind died down and I was able to collect my thoughts. That struggle to say something concrete, something about science, something about whatever the ideas were that were flowing around in my head kind of went away.
We are down out of the rocks and stuff back in the woods. Cutthroat Pass, Pomerania Pass, super mellow. 4 miles. You should totally do it.
Then something interesting happened. I hit record again, and I just started talking, unplanned and unscripted, about whatever was on my mind.
I love reading papers that are from the 80s. They were used to be so much shorter and more concise, be it electricity, be it gravity, be it some special case of electrons moving around in a semiconductor.
The dam was breaking, but like a real dam. There was all kinds of gunk and silt and debris backed up behind it that had to come out first. It was a mess.
What is important to the models of gravity that work in real life is that they are invariant under your choice of coordinates for what we're considering. So you can imagine every point in space-time has a little dial, but suffice it to say, it's a whole different class of symmetries, diffeomorphism symmetry. So at each point in space you almost have, well, I don't say that, but see. But what's interesting about the knots is you can create such a theory that's generally covariant, that doesn't have a metric. Generally covariant theories, often we talk about them as gravity, with a few caveats. There's no ultraviolet divergence. Yeah, this is a tough one. But at tree level, so classically, quantum field theory and Jones polynomial in space. Why this paper was interesting goes notions of symmetry to the quantum choose theory. Your theory. Interesting starting point for observations, so-called electricity generally covariant. Turns out that there's this novel symmetry. That in of itself is very interesting.
So while I couldn't use much of that material, it was a start. Science had started to flow again. I'm not sure where this is going, but I feel like there's a bearing to follow now, and I'm excited to see where this goes.